This is Star Wars Episode 1 Racer. We're on PlayStation 4. This is a classic game that's been brought back. And yeah, it's kind of awesome because this is pod racing. So the game features a number of modes and a number of tracks across a number of planets. And there's new unlockable characters you can get as you play. It's got a full campaign. There's just free racing, which is what we're kind of doing now. I'm hoping to show off a number of tracks, if possible, to give you an idea of everything going on in this one. On top of that, there is like a sort of trials as well, and two-player if you want to do that kind of action. So yeah, this is pod racing. It's kind of a racing game done with the style of pod racing from episode 1. They took the concept from the movie that was I guess it was actually a pretty big part of that film, and they blew it out to this whole thing where you go across multiple systems and you're pod racing. You're competing against others, and yeah, it's kind of a lot of fun. It looks fairly good for what the game is, considering the time period it came out in. It's blown up, and visually it's fairly impressive. The cinematics, they kind of showcase every little area. They got the announcers, the voicing, the voiceovers in here, and that's really cool too. And it kind of sets the mood for each of the tracks that you're kind of going along. I think it's kind of a really neat and cool game from its time, and definitely something a little bit different that we wouldn't necessarily see from a Star Wars game in the current era. And it'd be really cool if they went back to having these, smaller little entries like this. So in the campaign, because there's actually the whole story mode and everything like that, you kind of go across on the races. You unlock new tracks and everything like that as you progress, and you of course are unlocking new little hidden characters that you can use. And with your campaign, you can actually increase and upgrade your vehicle. So you meet up with Sebulba if you want to buy parts, and a hilarious looking Qui-Gon Jinn is there, and you get neat little droids, and they give you little benefits as you buy them, and it's just lots of little options to sort of enhance your pod racing capabilities across your career. It's a charming game. I mean, it's very, I don't know how you can call it, simplistic to a degree, but it is sort of just a racing title, taking the concept of going really fast with your pod racer and just racing along on all these kind of Star Wars locations. It's got a little bit of a charm to it, some bumping music, and it's kind of loud, audio-wise, but yeah, no, this is a really great and fun kind of game. It is sort of silly to a degree, I guess you could say, though I'm sure for some this is something they've really been waiting for, because more Star Wars is always good. And I'm assuming a number of people did play this back in the day, and they're like, pod racer? Oh yeah, pod racing is exciting. And it kind of is a racing game, you go really fast, whipping along. You have to deal with these deadly situations where you could crash and your vehicle blows apart, and it's super deadly because it's pod racing. And it's really cool. You're trying to get the best track record possible too, because it keeps track of that as well. We're going to switch to another level. So this is one of the cinematics. They're a little bit rough looking, just in terms of seemingly missing some FPS in there. I think that's due to maybe converting them up to the higher visual quality. I think the actual gameplay itself lends its design really well to the high resolution video quality present on the platform, and I think that's really great to see, because it's just, I don't know, it's in a charming little game. It's got its quirks. I like that you can sort of blow out your vehicle and kind of take a look at it, in terms of there's a inspection area before you race, so you can do that. There's a bunch of different characters, like I mentioned, different styles of your pod racers, so you can have all kinds of different looks from obviously the film, and even beyond that with some unique designs too, which is kind of fun to see. I mean, they didn't really add anything to the experience, but did really anything need to be added other than fast moving action in these vehicles? It's hard to go over, because you got the standard story set thing. I think there's something about this kid being the chosen one, and that's why I picked him. I think he was supposed to potentially bring balance to the Force or something like that. We'll have to see how his career grows over time. All I know is this kid's got some real potential out there. I'm really thinking he's gonna do great things in the universe. Be a real changer. He's gonna be someone that always tries to, reach the highest ground possible. And even if he's challenged to reach that high ground, I think he's gonna jump for it. So here we go with another track. Again, there's just like a large number of them available. A good set of tracks and races that you can go along. It's actually a fairly full game for its time, if that makes sense. And sometimes the tracks give a little bit of options too in regards to how you sort of move through them, and it can really branch out where the players are across the track. And I mean, I don't think it's too difficult of a title to play. I think this is something that is appropriate for anyone to try out. I think at the time specifically too, it was something that was more oriented towards the younger audience, and it really kind of is still today though. Past that, I think it's fun for any kind of Star Wars fan or somebody that likes racing titles. Obviously the visuals aren't up to the racing style of today, but that's sort of expected because it's just bringing back that classic game, and that one gets me every time. Well, almost every time. I'm gonna get it one of these times, that turn there. Though yeah, it's fair in regards to getting you back into the action, continuing you having a fair chance of racing again. It doesn't have the modern racing mechanics of like rewind and that, but it's still got the charm of the time, and I think it's going to be fun for a number of people to check out because it's kind of cool. The pop-in is a little bit like sometimes, though it never really affects your racing capabilities. I mean, things aren't like showing up out of nowhere. Like you can kind of see here how it's sort of rendering, and you're not really seeing things too far out. It's an interesting effect actually how they handled the generation in this one, and I think it works out fairly well for it. It doesn't seem to be a problem or an issue in it, and it's just kind of cool to really go fast, blaze along these cool looking tracks, compete against others. Enjoy a number of like missions and challenges. I think we should split off to yet another map at this point, because this is something that's a little bit longer with its track, but a pretty cool level. Again, I'm just trying to show off as many different areas as possible so you get a full idea of the scope of what this provides for all the tracks and the missions you kind of play through. So this is before we actually get into the race. You can actually see, you can set how many laps you want to do, how many racers are present. So we're going to throw up to 12, and you can see how fast the AI is too. We'll do average, and we'll do the jump in there. Let's see how this goes with the full competitor selection. Let's get ready to pod race. Now this is going to be a little bit more chaotic in terms of how many competitors are kind of going at it. As you can see behind us. No, not really. Oh, yeah. Don't want to do that for too long. Otherwise, you are going to crash into something. You got to keep your eyes forward and hands on the wheel. But yeah, like I was saying, this kid, he's got real potential out there. I think he could have a very high position in the galaxy. And I also think that, he should maybe avoid lightning strikes. Those things probably aren't healthy for anyone. But particularly him, I foresee something bad in that regard happening in the future. And I think a general rule of thumb for anyone is like cloaked figures. They seem cool. They might promise you a lot. They might have like cool stories of weird guys that have like saved people and stuff. But yeah, I don't think it's a good idea to kind of listen to them, just in case. And I think that's a good sort of thing to live by for this kid right here, this Anakin Skywalker. I should have shown off different characters, but I'm just kind of really used to flying across here in this one. It's my pod racer, man. I mean, who didn't want to be little Anakin Skywalker when they were a kid at that time? I'm sure other people didn't. We could debate about the first movie all the time, but yeah. It doesn't hold up too well now that I'm older. Anyways, racing along, pretty cool level, lots of hazards, well set up. It's generally just kind of a fun game to play. It's a little bit silly. though it does take the pod racing seriously, offering a great selection of tracks, lots of different characters to race as. Like I mentioned, it's got the campaign, and it kind of goes forward and past that even, with all these different modes and ways to experience and try out the pod racing game. And I think we'll show one more track. Here we go. Who's ready to race? I know I am. I can feel the intensity. Wow. Ooh, those look like some really high resolution asteroids out there. Ooh. So yeah, just like a really cool selection of maps. I mean, they're not even like, I guess they're like race tracks, but though you get what I mean, right? There's just like a wide range of options across some interesting different planets in the Star Wars universe that probably aren't all even canon these days. You never know, right? It's just kind of cool. It's got that competitive edge to it. It's got a lot of different ways to compete and play and just have fun with it. It's a neat game for its time, whether you're revisiting it or maybe trying this out for the first time, as I'm sure many people will, not be too familiar with what this was or even know of this game. And there's some out there that are the diehard crowd that are like, oh yeah, it's pod racing season. I am ready to go. It's like, you see, stuff like this is kind of really fun too, that you could only see if you were pod racing, this floating style of play. It's just really cool. Oh wow, yeah, that is hilarious. I've never actually had that explode. I think that's why I got the trophy there. Well, explode in that way. You saw me crash earlier. I've crashed many times. That's the life of a pod racer, Oh, well, it looks like I got smashed there. I am not doing well this race. Ah! Yeah, at least I'm having fun though, right? It's just, it's a crazy little game. And they do just like such weird things with it. I think we're almost at the end of the track. I just kind of want to finish this one off because it's had such like wild, crazy turns to it, and it kind of shows like the full scope of how insane some of the maps and the tracks can really present themselves as. Like, this is absolutely crazy. You get some bumping action here against these other pod racers. No, okay. Well, I guess they're a little bit faster than I am. The force split here. It's just kind of crazy how, like, wildly outwards it kind of goes. You just wouldn't see too many tracks like this these days. Oh! Especially like really wish they would do more fun Star Wars games like this, having like little smaller spin-offs. Not everything has to be some massive Star Wars experience for the modern times. It can just be like a smaller, fun little game like this would be just charming for nowadays. I don't know. It's kind of neat, and I think we're near the end.